There you go. Good evening, good afternoon, good afternoon in the West. Good afternoon in the West also, because I'm on the West Coast of Africa, Liberia. Welcome to our EP6 of Eavesdropping the Moment. It is the 12th day of April 2023. Traci, how are you?
Wulwyn, I'm great. It's funny, you talk about West. I mean, growing up in Colorado, we could always tell what was West because it was where the mountain range was.
Gotcha.
And then when I moved east and I couldn't see mountains anymore, it was like I got all sorts of turned around. Like, wait, I don't know where I am.
Yeah, I think, which way do I go to Charlotte, and which way do I go to the beach? Then that's when I know my east and my west in that area.
It's so true. That's exactly true. We measure things by the beach, which is east, right? And so I'd always measure things by west,
For the
predominantly.
mountains. Correct.
Yeah, it's crazy, but yeah, we learn to adapt to it. And actually maybe I'm kind of feeling a sense of possibly where the conversation might go, but it's that idea of adaptation. Right? Adapting to our environments, our situations, circumstances.
Yes. I like that. So how have you been over the past 2 weeks?
So we are in spring break period. And I say that because, back in the day, I remember everybody was on spring break about the same time. Growing up, like, I don't remember different, maybe it was just my remembrance, but I don't remember different schools having different times that they were on spring break. Now everybody seems to have, so it's usually about a 3-week period of time that's spring break, right? And so we're definitely coming off of Easter weekend, which I hope you had a good one.
Sure did.
Yeah, and it gets quiet during this time. It gets quiet around here. We were saying it's almost like a ghost town in our community because everybody
go on vacations.
Yeah, people leave on vacations, and my daughter's recognizing that's actually a really great thing because the people with pets who don't take their pets with them, when she doesn't travel for spring break, she's got a lot of gigs with people's pets because she does pet sitting. So
go girl.
So yeah, so she's realizing she's today with my husband. He's doing some stuff in the field, and she needed a way to get to work. And so he's like, well, if you come and work with me in the morning, then I can take you during lunch break to
to her various gigs. Wow.
To her various gigs. So she's going to be working a 14-hour day today, is what we figured out.
Really? Wow. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, the girl likes to work. I mean, she's one of those, I'm like, I am so glad in this regard, but she is very discerning with what she spends her money on. She likes to save. more
That's
than
good.
fun.
That's excellent.
So
That's
yeah,
excellent.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Well, for me, I there's not going to be any power outages. So go back to EP5. Those of you who are listening, go to EP5 and you'll see we have a rendition of ghost stories where I have the shadows of my lights, and then my lights were blinking on and off. Right, very
Yeah, you were doing a
unprofessional,
little
but
rendition of Blair Witch there for a while.
there you go, there you go. But no, it's set, so power's ready. You know, if this goes down, secondary will take maybe 30 seconds to a minute because I have to run there and turn it on. But I don't think there will be any issues today. I don't perceive that. Even if it happens, it wouldn't be an issue.
Would be an issue. Yeah. I was talking to someone
Woo!
earlier today about the framing, things,
Mm-hmm.
and how I said that during quarantine, I decided one of the questions that I started to ask as far as discernment was, does this thing seem like it would be fun? And that became my measuring stick for a lot of things that I said yes or no to. Was did it
Mm,
seem to me like it would be fun? Because if it wasn't fun, or if I didn't know if it was going to be fun, that was a no.
yeah, yeah.
I learned a lot during that time of making, discerning decisions based on that qualification.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and what this gentleman who's also a coach and I were saying, I mean, he comes from quite a lot. I mean, he was telling me he lost his wife recently to ALS. So that full
mm,
year where she had been diagnosed to the point where she passed away, he's actually writing a book on it now. But we were talking about, he says life, you never know, right? And we never know how long we have. And he says, now I really recognize how important it is to literally live in the moment, right? We understand the impact of that from a cerebral concept, but he says, when you've lived
yes.
through what I've lived through, you become an embodiment of that concept. It's just much more comfortable, to not be afraid and to just live full
Mm,
out because you don't know how long you have. And I thought that was really
wow.
a great reminder, I think, to all of us,
Wow.
honestly.
And I like that, living in the moment. And I think it gels with eavesdropping the moment, right?
That's
You know,
right.
we come in here and we say we're going to be talking. We don't know what the topic is. So I see a couple people's hopped on. Welcome to eavesdropping the moment. Hope you stay. Someone just put
Welcome.
a someone just put a emoji on there. So that's a good one, right?
That's what I guess it
but
depends, but we're
it
gonna take
dep-
it as a
well, I'll check to see who did that, and we'll put you on the spot. But no, it's in the moment. I think when we say I'm going to do it tomorrow, or I'm going to do it the day after. I'm gonna get the kids when we have money. I will get married when we have money. I will just put all of these decisions these real beautiful life decisions based on and don't get me wrong, it's good to plan, it's good, but there are certain things that you just have to do, right? Like living in the moment. I we talked about this a couple of years ago, I think, where we were speaking about living in a moment, and you wouldn't have your camera ready to record something else because you will be recording it in your mind.
Mhm.
Because every time you are in the moment doing something, you go, oh, let me capture this and put it on Facebook. That to personally, it removes the essence, the purity of it, because all of a sudden now it turns to acting. You're turning it on to catch something versus let's just live it. And then what I think could occur is come back and narrate the story. So it gives you something to narrate on your Facebook or something, that you can say, you know what, this happened, like what we do here. You go, oh, I was talking to someone today, And in our conversations, we X, Y, and Z. Branding is good. Don't misunderstand me, because sometimes you want to catch it and do it, but live in the moment. You record it here. You create those moments with the person or the people that you are engaged with, and those moments are etched in our minds forever. And it's those that we pause when we're going through something. We go, huh, I enjoyed that, and then you continue, right?
I think that's so wonderful, because I know that I was just talking to a friend of mine this past weekend. So we like to do these 8-mile loops. So we'll walk and we figure the whole world out, because you're gone for like 2.5 hours. So there's a lot you talk about. And I was saying that same thing where, I feel like I spent much of my life trying to capture those things so they wouldn't go away, right? It's like
Mhm.
to capture the moment. I think that's what's happening when we're taking pictures or we're, doing various things. It's like it's a way to try to control a moment in time so that we don't we prolong it, right? We
Correct.
don't lose it. And
Correct.
yet when I was saying to my friend is, there was so much energy going into trying to control the aspects of not losing it, whether it was a moment in time that was just so enjoyable I didn't want it to end, or whether it was a relationship, or whether it was, just an experience in general. So much energy went into trying to not lose it, have it
Hmm.
continue, that you're not present, you're not in it, because you're working so hard for it not to end, that you're
Correct.
not actually
Correct.
in it, in that present. And that each moment only has its momentary point of time. You can't prolong
Oof.
it. You can't, no matter what we tell ourselves in our minds. um that's an acceptance that I think we all really struggle with,
Mm.
is, and unless you have oftentimes something really serious happen, where it just, either it's your own illness or somebody else's illness, or just some sort of major challenge that happens, that kind of recalibrates you to that awareness of no, it's now. Okay, now it's now.
Hmm.
Now it's now,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
um, that it's hard to drop into those things, because we're almost afraid too of having them, because then they're gone, and then we feel the sadness of them being gone, and we're so caught up in our relationships with things that it is really hard to be
Mm.
just with them, and just in that joy, in that moment of time. So yeah, that was just a little thought
Wow.
that I was having, just looking back.
Yeah. Yeah. You said that. I remembered years ago, I was going through the wilderness and I just stopped taking pictures, which was a negative thing. And my reason was, and it was pictures that, we, after we say we meet, family or friends would meet, and at the end we'll say, you know what, let's just take a photo that we were here. And then we'll all, gather around and go. And I stopped doing it because I was in such a dry place, physically and spiritually, going through a process of spiritual growth, that I didn't want to see myself the way I was. So I didn't want to remember
Mm.
after I left that place. And my sister, my wife, would take pictures of me. And if you would see, if you would look at any one of those pictures, you would see hollowness. I mean, I was just hollow. You could just look through because my eyes weren't present.
Mm.
Uh, and when I think back to that, knowing what those moments were as a refinement, I'm thinking now I should have taken more pictures because I would want to see where the eyes went blank and where the sparkle started to get back. Sparkle
Mm.
started to get back, and then I could trace that in my journal to say, this picture was taken in December of 2015, and here's what I was writing in December 2015.
Mm.
Because those are points that we can go back to learn. So that's moments, moments, moments. But
Mhm.
It's kind of nostalgic here around here.
Yeah, yeah, well, like you said, we never know where we're gonna go with the topics, and I think that's the beauty of it is we're so conditioned to know, to either be focused backwards or focused
Mm,
forwards.
yes.
That,
Yes.
we need to look backwards to prepare ourselves for what's to come. We need to look forward to prepare ourselves for what's to come. Um, and the now is something that, although we talk about and give it a lot of lip service, and we understand again, from a cerebral standpoint why it's important, the actual practice of it is really challenging.
Yes.
And that's one of the things, like when I'm working with people, in the head, heart, gut intelligence work, for example,
Mhm.
being present, so this gentleman I was telling you about who's writing the book about his wife who passed from ALS,
Mm.
um, he said, I like to ask people, how are you doing today? And I said, I really love that. I said, in fact, that's the question I asked you. It's a little bit different, but I ask, how are you doing right now?
Correct.
Right? How are things going right now in this moment? I don't always say in this moment, but how are things going right now? I said, because what it tends to elicit is this question of how are things going right now, right? Which
Mm.
brings us to the present now. And it also drops us more into our bodies. If we're really, really listening to the question, if we're really paying attention to it, how am I doing right now? It isn't just what am I thinking, but how am I feeling? What am I sensing? Like, I have to sense into that. I mean, I'm
Mm.
gut predominant, so I lead with my intuition, my sense
Gotcha.
perception. So that tends to be where I go first. But even if you don't, even if that's not your predisposition, the question can help you drop into the different intelligences,
Yes. Yes.
to elicit whatever information they have, because we often aren't in our bodies. you
Mm.
know I mean, we are,
I
but we're not
understand.
from a place of awareness. Um and that can be a challenge, because
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, oh gosh, I didn't even notice that my leg is kind of uncomfortable. I need to readjust, until I actually paid
Yeah.
attention.
That's true.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
And we're
Yeah.
not paying attention to ourselves. We're paying attention to all the other things out here and back there, even concepts of ourselves from the past, but we're not the current self.
Yes. And you say that, and it happens to me in when I'm driving home and I know the route.
Mm,
There are certain parts of the route that I don't remember passing. I don't remember passing, getting to that light, because I wasn't in my body. I wasn't there. I was thinking about so many other things that I missed. I missed the journey. So
yeah.
most and most times, I I found out, when I spoke about hollowness in going through that spiritual path, right? Get into that. We always tend to look at the green dot. Oh, GPS says it's going to be there. Great, we were getting there. Versus enjoying the journey,
Yeah.
because I think the meat occurs as you're going through. It's not getting there that's going to getting there is the end. That's, yes, it's great, but going through and getting the experiences, getting to know yourself, as you said, getting to know yourself. It's those things those things that truly creates the substance of self,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Versus going to the end and getting it, and you checking a box. Did it? What did you do back there? Huh? How did I passed four lights, and I don't remember. Uh, so in the moment, I don't know why it's in the moment. I was driving
And there's
to
important
to a
stuff
cl-
there.
yeah, I was driving to a client on Tuesday, and I usually just ignore the 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 people on the street. Because if you pay attention to them on the street, you may get sucked in.
Mm.
So sucked into what? But I'll tell you, I'm driving, and as I'm driving, I start to notice. I started to notice people. I started to pay attention. I started to get in the moment. Wow. You know, the strange thing is when things tie in this life, things just tie in. Trust and believe. As I'm driving, I start to get in the moment and pay attention. So here are three things I noticed. You know, there are a lot of people in a lot of beggars around the world.
Mm.
And say if you go to San Francisco, whew, San Francisco has, I don't know if it's the capital of Beggarville. I don't, have you been?
No, I've
Um,
never actually been to San Francisco.
oh, sis, San Francisco downtown, it is full of people just begging and begging and
Oh, you make me want to go
homelessness.
now.
And yeah, it's the homeless and people just begging. So when I in Liberia, in Monrovia, so the war occurred and a lot of people were displaced and they can't go back home, and they don't have jobs because they were farmers, gardeners, etc. So there's no excellence in doing anything that brings money within the city, right? So they're selling and some are begging. So we have I'm seeing these beggars, but then I start to see the individuals who aren't begging but making it, attempting to make it. So the guy with the wheelbarrow, it's a load that a car should be taking, and this guy is straining. He's straining, and and as much as this is the tropics, there's the kind of sweat that's coming off him. It's it's work sweat. It's not heat. It's not just the heat. You know, you and I go, oh, it's hot, but every pour, it's pouring. It's pouring. Hey, Carl, it's pouring. That's one. The second one was someone picking up the trash, and trash here is trash. It's not it's not kosher trash. It's trash, defecation, and everything. It's part of it. And this guy is picking it up. And I see him, he looks at his hands, but he's not picking he has gloves on. He looks at it and he looks at it. And then he keeps on doing it. And then there was another, the third person was a lady, a blind lady. No, it wasn't a blind. It was a guy who had a stroke and he was just walking. He was walking, but he was going somewhere, but it was hard. And then when I noticed there were three things, I just got overwhelmed. That you just got to do something about it, Wulwyn. You got to do something about it. Of people who want to do something and are not begging, but they are thriving to do it. So that's just why am I saying this? I got in the moment.
Yeah.
I got in a moment and I cried, but it was so enriching for what it developed in me to create for those individuals who are trying to do something but they can't do it because of means, and how I can assist in pushing them to that next level.
So you know what's coming up so strongly for me, because we're talking about being in the moment, is we're always looking at, again, the future. What more can I do in this case for
Correct.
people to improve people's lives, which is lovely. It's beautiful. I mean, we all want to subscribe to that. But you did something really important that I think we don't oftentimes acknowledge, is you bore witness to their existence. You noticed them and you bore that present moment of existence, and you held space for the relevance of it. You even cried, right? Which is a celebration of humanity. And we don't often think that we're helping people when we bear witness to their lives, whether that's their struggles, their joys, it doesn't matter. You know, when we bear witness to them, energetically speaking, that does a lot. That does a lot, because one of our greatest fears as humans is not to be seen, heard, understood, loved, not to belong, not to be borne witness to.
Correct.
Right. And so when we take that time to make that connection, and really, I mean, it wasn't just noticing, it was literally bearing witness to their lives.
Wow.
You just gave them something big, something we can't put a monetary value on, but is so core to us, it affects most of our decision making. Unconsciously speaking, we're not always aware that it's doing that.
Correct.
But we want so much to be loved and understood and have a place of belonging that we're unconsciously making decisions a certain way in order to have that. And yet we're energy bodies first, and we can feel. I mean, even though they might not have been aware of, oh, this person named Wulwyn Port is bearing witness to my life, and boy, now suddenly I have this, you know, energetic upsurge. Probably not, unless they're psychic. But something shifted. Better believe it. Something shifted even in that moment where maybe that hard, you know, carrying all of that laborsome bit where the guy is sweating profusely, it just feels a little bit lighter, right? In that moment. Or the person who had the stroke is walking as there's just this little bit of an ease temporarily because of that, right? Or the man who's picking up trash is feeling a little bit more purposeful. Something shifted, I guarantee. Yeah. Because those types of things, I mean, this is really those fundamentals. That's how we do for people. And it doesn't cost us anything, and it takes no time at all. You don't have to build an organization and capital and all of this stuff to do it. We just start by bearing witness.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you say that, and as you were saying it, you know, we want to have a place to belong, right? We want to be noticed, and do unto others as you have them do unto you, right? If I want to be noticed, I need to notice others, right? I need to notice others. We have to if I'm the guy that rewind. My mom just came in here and showed me something. I was like, Mom, go.
You're like, being in the moment. Oh, moment.
I was like, and she never does that, right? She says, what's this here? I'm like, I don't know. But no, we most times the answer, we have the answer. And the answer is, so if I'm doing something, if I'm picking up this, if I'm lifting this up, and someone notices me and it's heavy, I would want someone to assist me in lifting it, right? That's my wish. What makes me feel that the guy or someone who's living around me doesn't want to be noticed? And I am the one who is supposed to notice that person and do something, because not because I want someone to notice me. Yeah, kind of. But at the most opportune time, when I am performing, though it may not be that tedious, where profusely sweating or stroke, walking and hopping, but something that I'm trying to build, that someone notices me and says, you know what, man, I'm going to give you $1 million. The widow's mite was a widow's mite. It was all she had, but to God, it was so much more. the person whom I'm giving the hand or a lifting or just noticing, say, I see you, I see you. Who's to say that the way I'm going to get the reward, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be commensurate to what I need,
Mm.
what I need. Because that person needs that. I see you. Thank you for taking the trash. I truly appreciate it, man. Without you taking it, this place is going to be a dump. And he goes,
Literally.
so
Yeah.
much better than money. So much better than money. Oh,
Well,
someone saw me.
we've only learned the value of money. It's not an innate value that we hold. We don't come out of the
Thank
womb
you.
and see cash and be like, "Oh, that's valuable to me," right? It's a learned
Yes.
symbol of value.
Mm.
And so what you're saying is really important. And what I'm saying is even more fundamental in the sense that in ways we're not even consciously aware. They talk about the butterfly effect, right? When
Mm.
a butterfly wing, butterfly's wings creates that little tiny bit of wind, it has this ripple effect. And that's what energy does. When we subscribe, I think a lot of times the reason we have a hard time looking at people is because we're thinking, oh, if I look at them, I'm going to feel inclined to do something, because that's how we've been conditioned.
Yes.
And so because I don't want to or can't or whatever do something, I'm not going to look. So
Yes.
it's the same thing when people ghost or anything. It's like I don't want to do something, or I can't do something, or I don't know how to do something, but it's always about doing something.
Mm-hmm.
I can't make that person happy. That person wants to date me. I don't want to date them. Well, then have the conversation. Bear witness
Yeah.
to their humanness of wanting to belong. If they can't belong to you in whatever way, communicate that, because otherwise what we're doing is it's because it's selfish. It's because we can't do for them. We're not here to do for one another. We are here to support one another when that is energetically the right
Mm.
thing. But we are
Wow.
first meant to acknowledge one another, right? Bear witness to one another, not ignore one another because it's uncomfortable for us. Because where you said it earlier, where we do that to others, it is done to us. Where we ignore, we are ignored, and first and foremost by ourselves. If we can't be real and true to what is happening within ourselves with ourselves, that is going to make it very difficult for us to be present and
Mm.
offer that and bear witness to others.
Mm.
So we start with that. How am I feeling? What am I sensing? What is my body needing? What is my head, heart, and gut brains? What are they telling me? And learning this is bearing witness to ourselves and the absolutely brilliant way in which we communicate with ourselves. That most of the time we're so focused on the doing aspects of who we need to be out here that we're not doing that for ourselves.
Mm.
That we start to feel the shift. I feel so much more present when I'm with people now than I ever have in my entire life.
Why so?
And it's because I've been more present with myself.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Learning how to tap into what myself is saying to myself, what I am saying in my infinite ways, my inner gadgetry that's constantly communicating with me.
Mm.
That as I learned that, I'm more present with myself, therefore it's much easier to show up that way with others and bear witness. Whatever
Wow.
it is, whether I value it personally or not, if it's something that's valuable to them, right? To have me be present with it, it's the greatest gift I can give them in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. You explained it so well. Um, Within when so at place wherever you reward, be it work, be it children, be it just wherever you do rewards, it's always learning B school, it's always good to inquire, what do you want to be rewarded with,
Mm.
because not everybody is about money. So I want that recognition. So I go in certain people's offices and I see certificates on the wall, And I'm not talking about your certificates. I'm talking about um, partook in a 2 week course. Bam, is on the wall. Partook in a. I'm
Or
telling
on
you,
their LinkedIn profile. You get all the LinkedIn, people have the
but
certifications on LinkedIn. Yeah.
correct. See, that's their reward. That's how they want to get certificates. Other people want, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for coming today to the meeting, the quarterly. We want to recognize Mr. John Brown. John Brown has worked tirelessly over the past few years with you, and we want to give John Brown a watch. He's in for the watch. The other person, they want uh, a purse. Others want a gift card.
I'm
So 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 it's bearing witness, and us seeing people, and in the moment is the purest, because you're not thinking. So God knows what that person needs, so that when you give it, the person is fulfilled. Whereas we're thinking, gosh, I don't have any money on me. So you know what? I'm not even going to look at them. So I'm learning from this, because I'm the person who I don't want to notice it, because I think I have to do something about it. I'm going to drive, and I think was it today? So in the moment, I was in the moment 2 days ago. I wasn't in the moment this morning. Guess what? The blind guy hits the car with his stick to know where the car is. So he's it's as if he's on a pendulum, right? So he's going boom. So I gauge the timing, and I wait until the car goes, and as soon as the car leaves, I wait, and I go, okay. Pew! And I drove past, and it didn't hit my car because I didn't want to engage him. I did not want to engage him. So what am I learning from today? He hits the car. I'm going to put the window down. Hey, how are you? I don't have anything for you today, man. Silver and gold I have not, but such as I have gave I thee, in the name of Jesus Christ, man. See, who knows it's gonna work? It's not about money.
No, I
We're
love
so
it.
conditioned. We're so conditioned.
We
I,
are. It's our own value that we look through the lens of what we value. And that totally reminds me of, I think I brought it up in the last episode, was the
uh-huh.
generational shift talk, where the woman was talking about what different generations value in the workplace.
Yes.
Wow. It really, it makes me think a lot about that, because the younger generations value things we didn't and don't, right? So
Yes.
certain generations, they like the watches, they like the money, they like the prestige, they like the credentials. These
Yes.
generations, they like to be included. They like time
Mm.
off. They like work-life balance. They
Yes.
like collaboration. They don't like to stand out. They
Mm-mm.
like to stand out as a
Mm.
group, not as an
Mm.
individual.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
shifted completely from many generations past. Like, you look at traditionalists, boomers, and Xers, there's actually a
Hmm.
lot of similarities between those three generations when you just kind of look at value,
Correct.
especially like what we value as far as what is, you know, measurable for us. I have been valued because I got X number of dollars, for example.
Hmm.
And you start to, the millennials were kind of a shift away from that, but then you look at Gen Z, and
Mm.
yes, they want to have the money to live, but
Yes.
they value so many other things above and beyond that. And the recognition piece was the biggest.
Yes.
They don't like to be recognized individually. It actually makes them
Wow.
uncomfortable. As my daughter says, it's uncomfy. We don't want to stand
Oh.
out, for good or bad. If you're going to praise us, don't praise us in a group. That makes us feel like everybody else is looking at us like, you're one of us, and I want to be one of them. I want to belong. So I
Mm.
want to stand out from the rest. We did it together. We win as a team. We lose as a team, is the way they think.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow.
So as a generation, I mean, obviously there's individuals within generations that, so any Gen Zers out there saying, I'm not that way. talking from a larger perspective.
And then it will cancel culture, right? It will
Yeah, they
cancel.
cancel me because of it. Yeah, no, I mean, we did that, but maybe they would. I'm not sure. I really, that's the cancel piece is also really big, is the uncomfy when we get uncomfortable because that person isn't looking through the lens of value the way we are. We just cancel it, right? And that's what we're doing when we don't bear witness. I mean, it's not like we can go around being totally aware of everything. Our minds would explode, right? So we do
Correct.
need to have a little bit of tunnel vision in order to, live.
Yeah.
But I think what we're talking about here is those moments where we are choosing not to be present with a person or something.
Wow.
What is that thing going on within us? Why are we choosing, to disengage, to not bear witness? It's something going on in us that could really be a great lesson if we pay attention.
Wow. Choose to I'm typing this. We choose to engage
Capture.
because we are uncomfortable. Wow. You were talking about what the current generation and the one that the 20-year-olds, right? Or the 30s. I'm about to say something that I would have never thought. Prior to COVID, most of the workers, the students that were coming into the workforce, they were requesting working from home. They wanted to work from home. They did not want to go into work. And there was a clash with corporate America and these new breed of workers that wanted to take their laptops, go to the coffee shop, Starbucks, do whatever, and work from there. And then COVID happened. And COVID shifted in their favor. And corporate America found out, some companies found out that it was much advantageous to their bottom line because there was no need to keep the lights on. There was no need to have a cafeteria, all of these different things. And they won. The generation that workforce won. And we who were, from generations past looked and said, this stuff works.
We realized we didn't think it ever would. Well, to that
Correct.
point, I really want to say something to that exact point. So yesterday, my daughter, she's on spring break this week. And so she came to me and we try to line up all the doctor's appointments, and she had a dentist appointment and it was at 1:30. So she comes to me at 12 and she says, can we move the appointment to 3? My Gen X mind is like, you don't just last minute call the dentist and ask like an hour and a half before you're going to be there if you can move it to 3. That's my internal reaction, right? Like, that's rude. That's disrespectful. That's all. That's my lens. You do it the way it's prescribed to do. If you need to call, you call at 24 hours before. Well, that's where most people's rules are too. You can't cancel. And then the part of me stopped and I was like, I don't know. Why don't you call them and find out? And I mean, there was still that resistance in me, like, yeah, good luck with that one. But I thought in a moment, I thought of Roger Bannister and any other visionary out there who said, I'm going to break the 4-minute mile. People are like, that's impossible. That's not how it works. That's not how it happens. And then he did it. And it was like, oh, that's possible. That can work. I can do it too. Right. So it's that whole thing where we're so prescribed to thinking a certain way that things are impossible, or that's not how it's done, or that's not, you fill in the blank. And she called, and granted they were at lunch. And so she's like, well, what do I do now? I'm like, well, they come back at 1:30, which is the exact time we have to be there. So I don't think it's going to work out this time.
Yeah.
But she literally thought it was possible. In her mind, it's like anything's possible. And there's a part of me that loves that. Yes. Really sees the value in that. Actually, a big part of me is that we have so many limitations that we've placed on what's possible. And even when we got into the doctor's office, I was talking to the front desk woman and I was telling her, she's like, I'm so sorry I didn't get Madison's message until we got here. And so I told her the whole thing. I was like, oh, no, you don't need to be sorry. I mean, she was just trying
I
to keep
know.
it. And she said, normally we would be able to do that. And she goes, and I love that she asked.
Correct.
And I thought, that is such a great lesson. You know,
Yeah.
I would be thinking, oh my God, I wouldn't want to ask because that would be presumptuous. I mean, we do when it's a crisis. We do when it's a crisis. Hey, I can't make it because my car's not starting or whatever. But why when there's not? And the reason she didn't want to is because she was trying to get a friend to come over and he could only come over earlier. And then she was like, oh, well, then I'll just move my appointment.
Yeah.
Because that's what she valued. She wanted to connect with her friend for the hour that he had available. And she just thinks in her mind, I don't have to live by the laws of doctor's visits. I could just, I mean, she did. She went without any complaints or anything, but
Correct.
why not ask?
But that's, that's Verlin always says this, because I'm you in with Verlin's Madison. She says, I'm already at no. If I ask, what's bigger than a no? Nothing. But if I ask, it may change to a yes. So I'm going to ask. So we would go into places and Verlin would ask these questions that I would
and you're like, oh,
cringing. And then I'm the guy behind going, nah, that's, and I'm voicing it to the person she's asking. I'm like, nah, that's not going to work. And the person goes, sure, we can do it. I'm like, why? We're conditioned. We've been conditioned that stay in your lane. You can't get out of this lane because if you get out of this lane, something's bad's going to happen. And these new breed, the younger ones, they are stay in your lane. Like, I got a signal. Okay, thank you.
yeah, exactly.
And I'm going to stay right here. I'm going to drive until I get to Durham or get to Monrovia Broad Street. And I'm just going to stay right here. I'm not moving. And I'm going to stop. When someone stops in front of me, even though nobody's coming on the right or left, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stay right here. I think that's innovative. That's innovation. That's
They're much more
pathfinding. Right?
It is pathfinding in a different way, because again, when I see a lot of in organizations where they're challenged with that younger mindset, they're also viewing it through a lens of, innovation needs to happen like this, or flexibility. Even there's all these rules even around things that don't have rules. And so it's part of it is saying this is them being innovative. Right? The fact that they have less established limitations that they've placed on themselves and others. The one thing too, when I watch my daughter and her friends is, they say that this group is not very resilient. And that again is kind of a prescribed definition of resilience. You fall down, you can get back up, right? But I see their flexibility as a very high level resilience. I mean, even when she came in, it was not with an expectation of a yes or a no. It was just, I'm going to ask because this is what I want. She had to focus on what she wanted and she asked and it didn't work. And so she was like, okay, but at least I asked, right? At least I was able to, move forward and try. And to me, that actually is a very certain kind of resilience. Right, that ability to be able to go and say, I can hold what I want loosely without expectations, and that is what I'm operating under. Right, is that particular piece. And I'm going to keep talking because I realize Wulwyn just bounced off. So if you were wondering why I'm rambling, I think he's probably going to get his generator going, and hopefully that's the case. But yeah, I really believe that. Resilience. Yeah. Hi. I covered for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. No problem. No problem. That's the flexibility and the resilience. No, but did you hear me at all? I don't know if you heard me.
You know what? The network went really low, the bars. So all I was hearing twang, twang, twang. So I said, you know what? I'm going to refresh this and get it ready. And it worked. But give me a synopsis, please.
Synopsis, I was basically
Yes.
saying that flexibility is a certain version of resilience, right?
Okay.
Is being able to come in without expectations, holding what they want,
Hmm.
asking for that what they want,
Yeah.
but working with whatever answers they get. To me,
Correct.
that is resilience. And
Hmm.
maybe what they're trying to do is bridge the gap so they don't have to fall so far and so hard as we have in the past, right? So
Yes.
again, our typical definition of resilience is like, oh, you're taken out and then you're able to jump back up and get on the horse and
Correct.
do it again. And what they're trying to do is say, can I hack that and not have such a big fall? Can I focus instead of focusing on what I don't want,
Hmm.
right? Let me focus on what I want and then just work with what I get.
Correct. Correct. That's it
And
is.
and that's really different. If we look at kind of our mindsets of the past generations, it was always to cover our bleeps, right? Our
Hmm.
back
Hmm.
ends.
Yep.
It's like, oh, and that's, if we look at it as a mindset, that's a limiting mindset. That's a negative approach to trying to get a positive outcome. And they don't do that as much. I mean, partially it's because they do have a fear. They're the most fearful generation, according to research.
Mm.
Because they're most afraid of. That's why they care about if things are for the greater good. They want to know we have a planet to live on. They want
Yeah.
to know that there's going to be oxygen and food and the basic necessities, because the
Yeah.
way they're learning, because they're so tapped in and hear more than we ever did at their ages.
Oh, yes.
They're
Yes.
aware of
Yeah.
all of the instability in the world, and they aren't developmentally ready to really hold those burdens yet. So I think their resilience is really in adopting, going back to how we started this conversation, that adaptation to the current environments that they're in,
Yes.
is to say, okay, I will go butt crazy if I don't focus on what I want. If I'm focusing on what I don't want, it's too scary. That's just
Mm.
way too dark.
Yes.
So I'm going to focus on what I want. I'm going to ask for what I want. I'm going to go for what I want, and I'm going to adapt to what I get.
Mm. 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 Yeah. You're right. While I went for a second in the ether, Verlin came on. Hey, Verlin, how are you? I see you, sweetheart. And she was like, yes, in terms of asking when you're down, right? Asking when you have nowhere to go. Ask. And I'm grateful for people. I think, God, the way the world runs. Oh my goodness, we're in dessert phase. This thing went by too fast. So some of you are on and you haven't spoken, you haven't said anything. Big Brother's watching, and we'll be to your house. We'll be at your house later on tonight.
Wulwyn will be at your house. I'm happy to have you.
But no, what I was saying is generations overlap for a reason, and I think the older generation represented by this and the newer generation, I want to face that way, but it's hard for my hand to go that way. So I'm going to do this. They were going that way. So the old generation comes in, and then the new generation picks up. There's this lap over, right? This space right there. I think that's a space where we learn from each other. And if, as the older generation in this case, but we have our parents still, when we can adapt. You remember you said it was about adaptation or something. When we can adapt to what's new, and then if they can adapt to what's old, I think wisdom then comes in both ways,
Yes.
where we understand where they're going. They understand where we're coming from. And for this little 30, 20, 30 years that we will cohabitate,
Mm.
can't we just do it in a wise way? And I think, if I have a feeling that if we go back in time and see where generations coexisted without a whole lot of friction, because there would be friction because they didn't understand. I didn't understand. I don't understand my parents. Why are you doing it this way? If we can understand, we can bear witness with each other, you would see a lot of innovation. I would say, if I research this, you would see a lot of innovation occurring in those generations where there was lap, and they were existing and working together and learning, and pushing forward with lessons learned.
Oh my God, I love that you said that, because
Yeah.
you know one of the things that when we were talking in this generational shift workshop,
Hmm.
that we forget is, generations aren't static, right? Generations shift with the shifting tides. And so, like, when we were coming up, so I'm Generation X, I'm like an older
Hmm.
part of Generation X.
Gotcha.
And when we were coming up, like I remember the 80s where our families thought we wouldn't amount to anything. All we girls just wanted to have fun. All we cared about, was big hair and fancy clothes and how much money it cost and all this stuff. And it's like, oh my God, they're like so into themselves that there's no way they could be leaders. These are the people who have to take care of us as we age. Every generation says that, right?
Yes.
So, and then we end up being right now in the workforce. Generation Xers are some of the most sought after because they're the workers. We were the latchkey kid generation. We were the ones letting ourselves in the, home and doing our homework and making our own dinner and
Correct.
taking care of our siblings and all that stuff. And so we worked through our developmental stages like all generations do. And we became like the harder workers. Like we
Mm.
have no problem working. Unfortunately, sometimes
Wow.
too much. We become addicted to
Yes.
work. There's a lot of
Yes.
Gen Xers that have work addiction. But
Mm.
because that's our value, we see our value in what we can do, right? What we can produce, what kind of work we can do, and what level of work we can do.
Yes.
So
Wow.
but we can't just take a snapshot of a generation and say, especially when they're so young in those early
Yes.
stages. So when people are saying Gen Zs, it's like, oh God, that's like, give them some time, folks, because I see so much that they're teaching us that are helping us be more innovative. I mean, even my daughter is always like, oh, Mom, that is such the long-handed way of doing things. Can you just let me show you how to do that
Wow.
easier? Like she's
Wow.
just, I mean, she'll ask, she won't just come in but she's just,
Correct. No, no,
there's an
but
easier way to do that. I mean, I don't want to displace your old-fashioned, antiquated way of doing things, but
wow.
still,
Wow.
I mean, it's
Wow.
just great. Like I love it. And I completely wholeheartedly want to adapt with the changing times. And I see that visionaries are actually much better at that in general because we have that visionary next mind. And I
Yes.
look at my mother who's a visionary in her mid 80s and she is child at heart. Like she just
Yes. Wow.
everything is what's going on now and the beauty in it and the resources in it and the
Yes.
opportunities in it. And I think that I
Yes.
want to I want to have that. I want to continue to be
Hmm.
like that as I move along through the
Yeah.
years.
I want to be optimistic about life.
Mhm.
And I am optimistic about life. But just what you said about your mom, right? To be hungry to find out what's next. When the
Yeah.
phones come and you have to do choo choo choo. What I can't wait for is the ones that, the glasses with the TV in it. I don't know how to do it. Or I can't wait to have a screen that's mounted on air. I
Yeah.
can't wait for that. That I can touch and go ta 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 ta. I mean, it's going to be so innovative. It's going to happen.
Well,
But
it's our
what's gonna?
brains too. We're not even going to
Yeah,
need tech. We're going to
there
do
you
that.
go.
Osmosis is going to be a thing where we just look at each other and blink and we've just taken a snapshot of what's going on in that person's head. You
I
know,
mean, they were doing some fancy, funky stuff, right? I some of them I'll be like, nah, y'all go ahead. because I'm a laggard, right? I would lag behind there and wait for them to. Okay, they didn't die, huh? Okay, I
That's
can
right.
do that.
I'm not the guinea pig. I'm
I'm
once you
not the guinea
perfected
pig.
it.
But no, wow. Come on, wrap us up, Traci.
Well,
It's been a
adaptation, yeah, I think how we adapt as we move through, present time, is like how are we being with ourselves in the present moment,
Mhm.
which will influence a lot of how we're being with others in the present moment.
Yeah,
And then how are we adapting as we're with others, to really bear witness not only to our own lives, but to their lives, and move things in that direction that we intention, right? Because the power of intention is indeed that powerful. And so when we, what do we want? Not what do we don't want, right? When we watch the news, it's a lot of what we don't want,
yes,
right? But what do we
yes.
want? Like I ask clients that all the time. What do you want? Well, I want to not have these challenges. I'm like, no, that's a focus on what you don't want. Like
Yeah.
ideally speaking, if you could wave a magic wand and money were no object, and time, you know,
Wow.
time was no option, and none of that was an option. What do you want? And we struggle to answer those questions.
Wow.
So I just leave people with that, is, really focusing on what you want to create, because the power of your intention is actually literally, just like I said, I think I hear early on something about adaptation. It is going to circle back around because I've planted that
Correct.
seed,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
So plant the seeds of what you want and show up in the moment, and bear witness to the journey.
Wow. So that's the wrap up. I'm not going to say anything about it. All I will say is thank you for spending an hour with us. If you're on replay, listen to the entire thing. Let us know what you think. Uh, this is EP6, Eavesdrop in a Moment. And the only thing I want you to do is ask yourself, how am I doing today? And truly listen and answer that question. Because when you do it, you're doing that self-diagnostic that you do with the car, right? So let me see what's going on in the car. How am I doing today? And I think when we answer that, how am I doing today, it becomes the forward thinking of us asking others, how are you doing today? So love you guys. Traci, you take care of yourself.
You too, my friend.
Bye-bye. By the way, join us in 2 weeks. Every Wednesday, come back.